Hi, everyone. Welcome. Good afternoon. I'm very excited today. Janice, I am a Reiki Master Teacher and intuitive medium here on Long Island. My guest today is Ray Catania. He is an author, he is a teacher and coach, and he has also experienced a near-death experience that changed his life for the better. So everyone join me in welcoming Ray.
Hello, everyone.
How are you this afternoon?
It's an honor and a pleasure to be here, and I'm just really excited. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Good. So Ray has written several books, and one of them was about your near-death experience that has changed your life profoundly. So you went from being an atheist to a clairvoyant, and that story kind of takes place in that first autobiography of yours. You walk us through that story?
Sure. So the story, unfortunately, it doesn't start out pleasant, but it will end happily. I came from an environment, a home that was not peaceful, let us say. I spent a lot of time isolating myself in order to avoid what was happening around me. So spending that much time in isolation gave me an opportunity to try to escape. So when a person is in a traumatic moment, they try to escape the moment by having their mind leave and go somewhere else, right? This is very common. This is well known. So it's almost an out-of-body experience where you're pushing your mind out because you don't want to be where you are physically. You don't want to be a part of what's happening physically. So you push yourself out, and eventually it happens and it works. Now, what started happening to me is I was able to start to strip away things that were man-made. So imagine I'm hiding in a closet for 6 hours a day, maybe 8 hours a day, and this started at the age of 5, maybe went on till I'm 11 when I left the house. So even the Mandela rules state that no one can go in solitary confinement for more than 15 days. That's a law.
That's a
right?
lot.
I'm there for years. So this is repetitive. So I'm just staring at a wall, staring at a wall, staring at a wall until the wall kind of disappears and the man-made items start to dissolve. And what you start to see is energy, the energy that makes the wall, not the colors of the wall, not the wall itself, the energy that is. And I could start to communicate a little bit with the energy. It would speak to me. I didn't think that was weird. And I wasn't hearing it with my ears. It was like, transmission. And I just thought, okay, I have a couple of friends. I thought everybody could do this. I didn't think it was weird, right? Now I came from a Christian home, so mentioning this was the worst thing I could have ever done. Right now I'm the Antichrist. There I am back in the closet. Okay. So it's but they stayed with me. And even though I would constantly say, you're not real, you're not real. My parents told me, you're not real, you have to go away, stop it, stop it, stop it. They would always be there in times of trouble. Any times of trouble. I don't know how many times I've cheated death, but it's a lot. And they've always told me how to get out of the situation when I'm in the situation. So let's go back a little bit. I come from this chaotic situation. As I grow older, chaos is my comfort zone because that's what I know, right?
Yep.
So if things aren't chaotic, I have to make them chaotic, or I have to put myself into a chaotic situation because that's normalcy for me.
Right.
So I worked in environments that were not peaceful, that were not, nice, if you will. Been involved in shootouts and different things that I'm not proud of. And but getting out of the situations was always done from my friends.
Totally understand that.
Right? Okay. Yeah. Right. You're a medium. You get this. So it was like at the last moment. There was even a moment when I nearly drowned, and I was swimming in the ocean, and the tide kept taking me back and back and back. I was small. I was like, I don't know, maybe 9 or something. And I'm about to drown. I'm going under. Then the lifeguard's looking the other way, and my father's looking right at me. He's just watching me go under. And he's like, he was in the Navy. I'm like, come on, what are you doing? Come out and get me. And nothing. Right. So I'm like, I'm going to die. This is it. And then again, the transmission comes: swim on an angle to shore. It doesn't matter how long it takes. That's what it said. I have no idea, but now I know that if the undertow draws you out, you're supposed to do that. You're supposed to swim on an angle until you get to shore. Right. So these are examples of these beings saving my life. So I'm here for something. I think today. Back then I did not. So one of the only real death, I guess, was the NDE. I was 20 years old, and there was a gas leak from the stove in the kitchen. I was still living at home with my parents, and my bedroom was just above the stove. Okay. Oh. Just above the kitchen. Right. So, it was, the gas fumes were going straight up into my room, and I would just breathe them in and breathe them in. We don't know how long, because I was sleeping at the time. It was going on all night. So my mother gets up in the morning. She probably smelled the gas. I don't know, but she turned the thing on, and it went, poof. And it wasn't a big fire or anything. I guess they have a safety valve or whatever. It goes.
Yes, they do now. Yeah.
Quickly, right. But that wasn't the damage to me. That was the gas fumes was the damage to me. But the fire trucks come, the police trucks come, everybody, I hear all this commotion, and I'm like, I want to see what's going on in my house. I try to get up, but I can't move. My legs won't work. My face will not. I can't yell because my face is completely paralyzed. I can't move my left arm. A lot of my body parts will not work, but my right arm will. And so I slowly pull myself to the edge of the bed. And when I get to the edge of the bed, I guess I fell out and I hit the floor. I never felt myself hit the floor. Still have the scar, because I was out of my body. At that point, I was above myself. I could tell you everything crystal clear. I could tell you the corner of the room I was in, how I was looking at myself. I was face down. I could tell you what I was wearing. I mean, it was just incredible. No pain, complete euphoria, a huge, I hate to just call it a white light. I need to figure out it's an all-encompassing energy that you want to go into. The more you go into it, the more euphoric it is. But it is like a cone-shaped white light that's only on me. At the end of the light is a being who's explaining to me that it's okay, it's safe to come into the light further. And I begin to do so because it feels good. And then my father comes up, and I see him pick me up and scoop me up in his arms and screaming for the paramedics, and eventually crying. And that was something I always wanted, was, like a relationship
with him.
So I get, I don't know if I asked or I told or whatever, I said, I don't want to leave him like that. Can I go back? And the next thing I know, when I wake up, I'm not in that room anymore. I'm in my living room on the floor. I don't know where my father is. All these paramedics are working on me, and they've all their tools and equipment and whatnot. And I was like, hey, anybody see the light? Did you hear the voice? And blah, blah, blah. And they start looking at me like I'm crazy. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to shut up now because they're going to take me to the wrong hospital. So let me just sit here and let them do their thing and then take me away. So, but even after the NDE, remember, it's so put into my brain that this is not allowed to be real, that I have to suppress it. Right. And I'm afraid to tell anybody because, when I said anything about my friends, that didn't go well. And so why would I say anything about this? Right. So, I boxed it up, and being the skeptic that I am a huge skeptic, or I don't know if I'm still am, but I was. And the way I justified it was this. So I figured I fell out of bed, and I know I fell in front of a window. So maybe it was a sunny day and the white light was the sun coming in.
Right.
And I inhaled gas fumes all night. So maybe I was just hallucinating the rest of the stuff. And I just justified it like that. And I tried to put it away. But here's the thing. Here's a guy, I can read energy, and I just crossed over. Okay. So I pretty much opened the door for them to just come through. Right.
Yep.
So 2 years later, I think it is 1.5, 2 years later, I get my own bachelor pad, and I'm psyched. And I'm like, oh yeah, we're going to have chicks and parties and this and that and blah, 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 blah. No, none of that ever happened. Okay. Because every time I would come home, there would be this uncomfortable feeling that I was being watched. It would get chilly, a little breeze, a black line goes across the room. The phone would ring. Nobody's there. The alarm, the blender's on and off, the TV's on and off, the computer's on and off.
You had a lot of energy in that place.
Oh my God. I could not sleep. I could never, ever sleep. I was talking to my friend on the phone, and I was just kidding around. I was like, hey, I think this place is haunted. And it goes click. And
Confirmation.
those were landlines back then, right? I'm showing my age. So I call him back. I say, why'd you hang up on me? He goes, I didn't hang up on you. I thought you hung up on me. I said, no. Click. There it goes again. And I was like, all right, please just let me sleep. So I cannot sleep. It's the energy is just, it's just there, and it's moving, and it's constant, and they're trying to get my attention. So I start drugs and alcohol to the point where it just knocks me out. And this becomes a problem that I later have to deal with. But that's how I dealt with it then. So I could sleep, and so I could shut it off. Right now, I'm not sure if I'm crazy or I'm not crazy. The drugs are just making it so. Who cares? So I move out of that place. I had a 12-month lease. I left in 10 months, and I got another place, and I was like, okay, this is going to be much better. This is where the party's going to be. Yeah, this is it. I can see it here now. And the same thing happens in that place. So it's not the houses that are haunted. It's Ray that's haunted. And I'm being funny using the word haunted. They're just coming with me. That's all.
They've attached to you. Yeah. Familiar.
Right. So when one knows that you can see and hear them, they bring the friends. Right. Once you welcome them, that they'll start bringing friends. Hey, this guy can hear us, and he can get a message out, and blah blah blah. So, but I don't know any of this at that point in time. I'm just going with the flow, and so, but I'm torn between, am I crazy or am I not crazy? Eventually, I get married, and I say nothing of this, and I have 2 kids. When I had the 2 kids, I changed my life completely, because I was responsible for these 2 beautiful little humans. I drove myself to rehab, walked in, threw my keys, and said, don't let me out, and until I'm ready to go. So I got cleaned up, went back to college, finished my degree, got a job on Wall Street, and just tried to have like a normal, quote unquote, normal life. And this went on for a very long time. And then I eventually went from that job to another job, very successful jobs. I did well. I didn't, I eventually got divorced. It was very quick because she left me when I was still involved with drugs and very early on. I don't blame her. So then many, many years later, I decided to try to date again. And I meet a woman and I meet her online and I instantly just fall for her. I was trying to decide what website that I should go to, and she was one of the examples. And I said, that's her. That's the one. So I joined the website and I click on her and I said, I'm going to send one email and it's going to be to her and that's it. And if she doesn't answer, I'm just going to cancel my plan. So I tell her all this and I put it in a funny way. I'm like, this is the only email I'm sending. So if you don't respond, I'm going to ask for a charge credit and I'm going to, talk bad about these people online and blah, 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 blah. She found it funny. So she got back to me and we went out. And as soon as we connected, I started to see the same man over and over and over on the movie screen. The movie screen.
I know the movie screen. Yep.
So here's the man on the movie screen, and he's telling me the same message over and over and over. I effed up. I made a mistake. You can help her. I cannot. And I see him very clearly from the shoulders up. And he's a stocky guy, and he's got thick hair and beard and mustache. This starts on a Friday. Saturday, it gets worse. Sunday, it's to the point where he's not stopping. I'm seeing the same 8-second video loop over and over and over. I'm in CVS and I'm paying for my stuff. And the woman goes, excuse me, sir, but are you okay? Because I guess I froze. And I said, no, I'm really not. And I went out to my car and I sat there and I said, okay, let me think about this. I'm losing my mind. What do I do? Well, I'm dating. She happens to be a doctor of psychology and neuropsychology. This woman that I now love. Okay, this is not going to go over well, right? How's the salmon? I see dead people. not what you want to hear on a date. Okay. So, but I figure that at least I'll get the help I need, right? She's definitely going to leave me, but she'll either get me the help or whatever. Something will come of it. So I go for it. And she's like, oh, relax. That's probably my father. He comes through all the time. I've seen many mediums. You're probably just a medium and you don't even know it. I said, I don't even know what a medium is. What are you talking about? She's like, you know what? And then she goes in to explain it. Not the answer I thought I was going to get at all. And I said, but listen, I saw the picture of your dad and that guy was thinner and he was shaved and he was clean cut. And that the one on, she goes, oh, the one on the mantle. She goes, he lost a lot of weight. The doctor yelled at him and he got cleaned up. But that's not how he looks. She's going through her phone, shows me a picture. And I go, you know that guy? And she goes, that's my dad, silly. And I literally just did not know what to do with that. I mean, I was in shock. I was just there. And so now, okay, what do I do with this? How do I get it under control? So I gave her the message, right? And as soon as you give them the message, it stops. It's over, right? I don't see the video loop anymore. So I'm relieved. And finally, she gets me to meet with one of her mediums that she met with. That person becomes my first coach. I then have another coach and so on until I learn how to control it and get it under wraps. And that was the beginning of me accepting the fact I'm not an atheist. There is something more. And my curiosity led me down a path of learning everything that I needed to learn because I come from this skeptical place. So when we talk about the law of attraction and things of that nature, I have to understand the science behind it, right? So the second book is literally, you can look at a concept and then you can look at the science that I believe is behind it.
That's
And
wonderful.
you
That's
can accept it and use it. And that's the idea. So the first book is How Did I Get There? And then the second book is You Can Do This Too, because trust me, I am not special. I'm just a regular guy. And, if I can do this stuff, anyone can.
so in that journey, how did you learn to define peace? Oh, and before we move forward, our friends at the live stream of consciousness, Michael, he says hello and thank you for sharing your story.
Hey, Michael, thank you. Thank you for being here.
So, yeah, it must have taken a long time to find peace in all of that. So, how do you define peace as you go through this incredible journey? You're still on it. We all are. So, how do you define peace and all that?
So that comes with my second mentor, who starts to teach me about the mind. And then I start to study, and I went back to college again for metaphysics. I went to University of Sedona and I got degrees in metaphysics, and I had my coach. What I began to learn is the separation of the mind. We have an unconscious mind, a subconscious mind, an egoic mind, a conscious mind, and at the very top is our awareness. This is the way Eckhart Tolle explains it, and I think it's really, well, he's amazing. And the awareness is at the very top, and the reason is because if you're aware that you're having a thought, or you're aware that you're having an emotion, guess what? You can change it. But what we tend to do as humans is we go to our subconscious, because that is like our hard drive that holds all the information of everything we've seen and done in the past. So, and that's where our ego wants us to go, because it's what we know. So if we continue to use that information with things that are going to happen tomorrow, guess what? We're going to have the same outcome as we did yesterday. Nothing gets better ever. But if you look to your awareness, which is connected to your higher self, the universe, God, whatever term you wish to use, the universal collective, that connection, if you look there, instead of allowing the ego to come out and react and force you to react, then you will get the answer that will better yourself. But you have to know it's there. And then you have to practice using it. And after you do it over and over and over, you'll start to stray away from the ego, and it'll have less power and less control. And you will begin to control your own life and your own destiny. And for me, I had to get rid of anger, right? That was my go-to for everything. So if anything bad happened, I got angry, because that's what I saw my entire life. So I practice these things, and how to do this is all in the second book, by the way. I would meditate twice a day, 3 times a day. Anybody can meditate, by the way.
Yep.
It's very, so I'm practicing these things. And one day I'm driving a car that I saved up a lot of money to pay for, because I thought it was a big deal to have a fancy car. And I drove it, and a deer ran out in front of me and I hit it. Now, old Ray would have filled with adrenaline, got extremely angry, got out of the car. I don't know what I would have done, kicked the deer, yelled, screamed, whatever it is, it wouldn't have been good. But none of that happened. None of that happened. There was no surge of adrenaline. There was no anger. I got out of the car and I felt bad for the deer.
Yeah.
Pulled the car over. I looked at the deer. Guess what? The deer got up. It got up and it actually walked away. I was like amazed. I've never been that close to a deer. It was looking at me. I was looking at it. Like, you okay? He's like, yeah, you okay? Okay. And we both walked off. The car was destroyed, but it's just a car.
The thing.
And then I started to call my wife, uh, and I'm like, why am I calling her? What am I going to ruin, her night? She wasn't my wife yet, and we weren't living together. I was driving home, so just to explain that a little bit. So that I drove the car. It was drivable, not wasn't great, but I was drivable. I put it into an auto body shop, and then I Ubered home, and I went to sleep. I did not lose sleep. I did not get hurt. I was thankful. I was grateful. The deer got up. I got up. The only thing that was damaged was a piece of material that doesn't really matter. But who is this guy? I don't recognize myself anymore. And in fact, I was having acupuncture the next day, and I'm telling this to the therapist, and she's like, that's beautiful. And she's crying. I'm like, yeah, but I don't know who the hell I am. Do you? Like, you don't know how you're going to react to things. But that was the moment. That was the moment I was free. I was free from the ego. I had my awakening. And I experienced some anger, but it's gone really fast. It doesn't resonate with me anymore. And getting rid of that is just the most beautiful thing that's ever happened to me.
That is beautiful. I love that. And as you're defining peace, how do you find peace? I mean, we had a discussion before coming on that the chaos was the comfort. You've brought that up, and I think that's the case for a lot of people. We just don't realize it, and I can understand that too. Coming from my background being very chaotic, and you try and do better than that as you keep evolving. So how do you find chaos? I mean, how do you find peace in the chaotic moments?
So one of the techniques that I give to people, one of the questions that I ask is this: what is good and what is bad? There's a saying, there's a quote by Shakespeare: nothing is either good nor bad, but thinking makes it so. You ultimately decide, because you are aware that you're having a thought, whether or not that thought will trigger an emotion. And if it's an emotion you don't like, you can change it. There's no rule book that says you have to be sad at a funeral. You have to be mad because somebody slapped you. You have to be this, you have to be that. That's all a crock of, you know what? It's not real. You are allowed to react any way you want to any situation you want. People might think you're crazy, but who cares? You can be free and you can be happy and you can have the feelings that you want to have. You can have those feelings from your awareness that's connected to your higher self. Let them drive you. If we let them drive us, we wouldn't have anger. We wouldn't have sadness. It wouldn't be there anymore. But we don't. We let the ego shoot out in front of us. So decide what's good and bad, and then change your speech patterns. Okay. I have to drive my kids to school. No, you get to drive your kids to school. You get to drive them. I have to go to work. No, you get to go to work. You get to go.
Everybody says very similar things.
Change your thoughts. Change the way you speak, and the rest will just come.
Now you mentioned you still have your moments of anger. We all do. We are still,
Absolutely.
spirit in a body here. So if you find yourself in those moments, you personally, what do you do to find that quick peace?
Yeah, I when I recognize that I'm in that moment, that's when I take a pause. Okay. And there's a technique that I like. I believe I got this from Eckhart Tolle. Make yourself the director of the scene of the movie that's starring you. It's your life story. Okay. Tell yourself what you want yourself to do. How do you want yourself to react? How do you want yourself to look like? What do you want yourself to do? Separate yourself in the third person, become the director of that moment. It takes a half of a second to do this and could change the rest of your life. I was driving and a car, I had one of the little ones in the back, and the car had run the stop sign. So I swerved out of the way, and I swerved, back, and I said something like, you blah, 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 something curse word. And I continued to drive, but the little one didn't really know what happened. So she had asked me, she said, what transpired? What happened? She said, what transpired? She said, what happened? What happened? And I said, well, that car, it ran the stop sign and almost hit us. And she's like, oh my God, you got really mad? And I said, no, I'm not mad. She goes, but you just yelled. And I said, yeah, but that was 2 blocks ago. I'm not angry anymore because there's no one running a stop sign anymore. That was back there. And she's like, oh, and the kids get it. They really do. And if you start that way, they'll understand it more. But you got to take that pause and you got to say, yes, I'm experiencing anger, but I don't have to. And then I remember another time I ran the stop sign, or almost ran the stop sign. This guy's just yelling at me and blah, 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 gets out of the car, the whole nine. And I just started laughing. I was like, oh my God, I used to be just like you. Let me give you my phone number. I can help you. I'm a coach. You need help, dude. And I was, it was just, I had no reaction other than I felt bad for the guy. You're not going to get me riled up. You're not going to take me out of my resonant frequency, because if you do, if I allow you to take me out of my frequency, then I'm not going to be able to manifest anything. And I'm going to live under your control, right? Because in order for us to manifest things and attract things to us, we have to get in that resonant frequency, and we have to focus on the thing that we want to come to us. That's the only way it's going to happen. So if you're getting angry all day long, guess what? That day's completely wasted. And then the next day, if you're going up and down, you just wasted another day. You need to have consecutive days where you're in flow so that you can attract the things that you want, especially if they're big things. So if you let somebody else dictate your emotions, they control what you have, what you do. You're allowing them that. Don't allow anybody to dictate how you feel about anything ever.
That's beautiful. So in that same vein, how do you bring peace to others? Like your daughter, your wife, how do you bring peace to others? Your best friend? Maybe even your ex-wife, because that's always an interesting dynamic when you're dealing with the blending families.
My kids, I have 2 kids. She has 2 kids, right? My kids beg me. They're like, "Could you talk to mom, please?" I'm like, I don't think she'll listen. I'm sorry, buddy. I don't think that's going to work out. Yeah, I like what I tried to do really with the second book was break it down in layman's terms so that there was like steps that you could actually follow to evoke a spiritual awakening in yourself. And I recently did a talk in Washington, D.C., and it was called the 7 Steps to a Spiritual Awakening. And I took the highlights of each section of the book, and I explained them, and we had a good time. It was nice. It was very good. But so the idea is there are universal laws and principles that have always been there since the beginning of time. And the first thing for me, right, I have to know it exists. Okay. The second thing, or actually part of the first thing, is I have to be able to replicate it. Then I have to know what's behind the curtain. How does this work scientifically, right? What makes the law of attraction work? Because I'm actually changing my vibration and I'm sending out a signal the same way the cell phone works. I dial your number, my frequency changes to yours, and your phone rings. That's all it is. So I can do that with money. I can do that with love. I can do that with other things with my mind. Anybody can. Okay. So now that I realize the cell phone works exactly the same way, the satellite dish works exactly the same way, now I can put it in the book because it's real.
So how does that help you with bringing peace to others? Like,
well, when I teach them how to do it, and they come back with their success stories, I'm just overwhelmed with joy. After the presentation, people were coming up to me who've read the book and done the things, and they were like, this worked for me, and this was fantastic, and this was great. And you don't become an author to make a ton of money. You certainly don't. But it was that was kind of like gave me that satisfaction. And I think that I quit my job just to spread this message. So that's what I'm doing.
So when you're working with your kids, you're working with your wife's kids, and I don't know their ages. I've got a 16-year-old, work with him a lot and trying to like we've gotten much better when it comes to he's like, "I didn't eat all day." He had a sweet 16 yesterday, first one he was ever invited to, and his when he's nervous, he's a little bit like me, he doesn't eat, so he takes into account, he's like, "I didn't eat a lot, I'm starving." I go, "I think it was nerves." He goes, "Yeah, I think you're right." Now, before we would bicker and everything. So, like, helping him navigate emotions has been interesting and remembering what it was like at that age, because not everybody gets to where you're at and where we're at. And so we need to help them find peace, not just through steps, but like for me, I help bring people peace by just like, okay, we got to take a minute to breathe, or hey, just being the ears and the observer and saying, you know what, this is what I'm hearing. And that once you validate them, there's a lot more peace. So how do you bring peace?
Well, when I'm in a session, I'm doing the exact same thing. It's not a cookie cutter thing, like you just said. Everybody's coming in with a different dynamic and a different set of circumstances. There are some commonalities, however. It will stem from past experiences, and they will evolve into determining what it is that they're doing today, unless they're advanced in their practices. So we find that the root of what is making it so that we can rid themselves of that item. And then when you give the people the techniques that they can use and use the law of attraction. I remember one woman was like frantic. She had to find these particular forks. She was having a party. This was very important to her. And she's like, okay, I'm going to do what Ray does. And okay. Attitude of gratitude. She says all the things that she's grateful for. And then she asked for the forks. And then she looked at the store that was right next to her. And she said, maybe they have them in there. Got out of the car, walked inside, and there were the forks. So it's like, just practice what we do ourselves. And when dealing with emotions, that just half a second pause. If you don't like the emotion you're experiencing, just pause and change it to the one that you wish to have. I don't have to feel this way. Thinking makes it so. I can think this way if I want to. It's a half a second. It will change everything.
Yep. And in that same vein, say you're going up for a TED Talk or you're giving a coaching session and you need to find peace really quick, or you have a co-presenter and you're like seeing that they're stressed out. What's like a quick tip that you can give people that works within, a minute or two?
Oh, yes. I got a great one. It's a very, very brief meditation, and I try to do it all the time myself. And it's just, I call it the attitude of gratitude. And you basically place your state in a rest. Place your body in a rested state, and you thank God, the universe, whatever term you wish to use, for everything that you already have been given or have. And we're talking about the roof over your head, the food on the table, the kids that you get to drive, the job that you get to go to, those types of things. And the people in your life and the loved ones that you have. Because when you do that, you raise your frequency instantly. You can't be in a bad mood after you do what I call the attitude of gratitude. it's impossible. So it will raise you, and it takes like 30 seconds to a minute to do it.
And how did you discover that?
And I was taught that. One of my mentors taught me that.
Beautiful, beautiful. And before we wrap up, is there anything that you would like to share about peace with the audience?
I think that focusing on where we find our peace and thinking before we react is probably the biggest thing that we can do, because too often we allow yesterday's decisions to determine what we're going to do tomorrow. And it's that break, which we call an egoic fracture. It's that break that will occur eventually after you practice this. Even if you've already reacted and you didn't want to do it that way, you can still think it back and say, this is the way I will do this next time. This is the way I will do this next time. And it's not going to happen right away. It could take months, it could take years, but you will get there and you will change. And one day something's going to transpire that normally would upset you. And you're not going to get upset. And you're going to go, oh my God, I made it to the other side.
Love that. Love that. So I want to thank Ray again for coming on. Definitely pick up his books. He has, the most recent is You're Still Alive, Now Act Like It. Definitely pick that up. Give it a read. If you read it, if you've read it, please leave a comment. Tell people what you thought. If you have questions for Ray or any comments, please do leave them in the comment section. We'll get them over to Ray. And I'm going to put Ray in the back for a minute, and we'll be right back. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. I hope that this was a very good experience. We have Marianne DeMarco. I'm very excited. She's coming on November 8th at 3 p.m. in the afternoon Eastern. It's a conversation I'm looking forward to, and I hope you can join us. I want to thank everybody and have a great afternoon.